Welcome back, everybody, to This Week in WordPress and Tech. This is episode 676. We're so glad to have you all here. Before we dive into our exciting topics and articles this week, why don't we go ahead and introduce ourselves? Mr. Denwood, as our host, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, you're the host, Stephanie, aren't you? I'm just the fan.
You're our fearless leader, though.
Yeah, the fearless leader. After last week's show, this host Spencer isn't on drugs this week. That's what I've got to say.
My tongue is better, but my allergies are bad.
All right, there we go. You were at your best last week, should I say? I'm the founder of WP-Tonic. We make education on WordPress. If you're looking to profit from your e-knowledge or your organization, we help you do that on WordPress. Back over to you, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. And Spencer Foreman.
Hello, it's Spence from WPLaunchify.com.
Sharon Yates, welcome.
Hi there. Oh, excuse me. Hi there. How are you guys? I'm Sharon Yates with Creative Mouse Studio here in bright and sunny Galveston, Texas.
Nice. And I'm broadcasting today from Charlotte, North Carolina. My name is Stephanie Hudson, and my company is called Focus WP. You can find us at focuswp.co, or you can come over and join our Facebook group, Focus on Your Biz, B-I-Z. So let's have one more little snippet here where we're going to go hear from our major sponsor, Castos. And we're back. Castos has a special offer just for the WP-Tonic tribe. If you would like to learn more about that and other recommendations from the panel, you can go to wptonic.com/recommendations. Now, why don't we dive into our topics for the week? The first article is coming from WP Tavern. Newfold Digital acquires YITH to expand WooCommerce expertise. Sharon, I believe you know a little something about this plugin. What do you think about the YITH enterprise here being bought up by Newfold?
Well, I just have to say I'm disappointed whenever anything that I use gets purchased by somebody else. I am a user of YITH. Some of its plugins for WooCommerce, especially if you like to do comparisons on your wish lists or it's a very good product to use in your WooCommerce environment. So being bought by a cloud hosting company, I'm not sure if I'm too excited about that, but hopefully whoever buys everything, they have good solutions that they want to further the product. So we'll see how it goes.
It's not just any cloud hosting. It's Newfold Digital. This is EIG. So
right.
Spence, what do you think?
Well, I mean, there's only a certain number of companies that have a real head start and the money to acquire big product plugin companies. YITH actually is quite a significant number of plugins, right? I mean, it's not just one or two; it's 150 plugins. 150.
Yes.
You can't get me out of bed in the morning for less than 150 plugins. But the point is that in order to take on that, it's really, I would say, a capital and a team incentive effort. And so there might have been other suitors, but this company clearly has a play for this. Now, the bigger question, the comments and so forth are slim here, but the bigger question is, like, how, if at all, does this influence Automatic's play? Because this is a company that ultimately can have a larger say in which way things go in the WordPress community than Automatic with their Jetpack. I mean, if you think about it, it's a monopoly board where we've been around 3-4 times and one or two of the players own everything. Mm-hmm. The other players sort of like start making deals like, please let me pass my boardwalk this time, and I think that's what's going on. On the other hand, and to wrap this up, there's maybe one of the articles today, but I read another article from Justin Tadlock. There's a lot of disruption potential. So even though the YITH plugins and the Yoast plugin, this and that might be the strong ones today, it's very possible that somebody could just rewrite everything by turning the other way. Like, okay, great, you guys are the best wagon wheel makers, but we're doing Teslas now. And I think that's a possibility. They still have an audience, though, just like Elementor has 10 million people, and Divi has 850,000. They'll keep their audience of loyal people using the plugins, but for the new audience, the other 47% of the internet, it's still open.
You think there's any risk because they're getting bought out by EIG? Think that's going to affect their,
I mean,
their
they're
support
benevolent,
and
aren't they?
things like that?
We don't hear, like, when you hear of crazy stuff happening, you hear of GoDaddy doing weird stuff, right? Like, you don't actually hear of Newfold doing anything outlandish or salesy.
They're so boring that it's unbelievable.
Happy to just kind of own it and run it.
Yeah.
But
yes, but they don't run it well. Like every hosting company that they've ever bought has just tanked.
But they tank like AOL tanked. I mean, like
Bluehost, I mean, they're the parent company of Bluehost, and I have to tell you that I was a customer of Bluehost at one time and moved away from them. So
God, I'm getting hot and bothered here, folks.
I know Jonathan is gonna.
You name names that get me hot and bothered.
But you guys know, like AOL, for example, still makes allegedly $5 billion a year, and you know what they make it on? They make it on the email.
Yes.
So, like, Newfold may be old and boring, and it might be a parody of itself with the way they run it, but like the volume of users and the fact that they just don't care to move because they're really, not that sophisticated, that might just be the play. I mean, my sister's in radio and TV, and the radio business is like from another century of mindset, and they continue to carry on, even though one or two companies run them all. So who knows? I think we definitely have an interesting time ahead of us for WordPress in general, because the shaking up of the code is a huge influence. For example, when you have plugins that are old and established that are written in PHP and so forth, and now they've got to stay in touch with the Gutenberg concepts and the JSON and the other React, that actually is an investment incentive to do something. And if the other plugins don't invest in it or they don't update, well, then that separates them from the pack. Even if owned
we have another acquisition on our second story, also on the WP Tavern website. DigitalOcean acquires CSS-Tricks. This one was a surprise to me because Chris Coyer of CSS-Tricks, it was such a personal sort of project of his, although it has grown quite a bit. But I'm a huge fan of that. So that was one of my go-to sites when I was learning, and even still, now that I don't do a ton of the hands-on stuff, if I forget something, I just go straight to that site when I need a CSS thing answered. But what are your thoughts on this, Jonathan?
It's a strange one in a way. In some ways, it makes my own personal view linked to story one. In some ways, I do understand why these hosting companies are buying these plugins, but in some way, it doesn't totally make total business sense to me in some ways. Where it comes to buying DigitalOcean, buying CSS-Tricks, I can understand it, because I think linking education resources to a brand and building a tribe, more of a tribe around it, is a play which I think increasingly we're going to see companies doing. But the only problem with it when it comes to pure business logic is that CSS-Tricks is so linked to Chris that, and if you take Chris away, what precisely are you buying? So I'd just be interested to see what the rest of the panel. Andrew Palmer's joined us, the great Andrew.
We've got an interloper.
We've got an interloper that's joined us. He's on brand as well. He's on brand.
He's got his Bertha AI T-shirt, so he had to get on camera.
Very impressive. It's just because I know Chris, I forgot the name, runs this other company, and I thought they were buying the whole thing. They were buying all Chris's online properties and resources. But it looks like what I read, they're just buying CSS-Tricks, and it's slightly puzzling. put it that way, Stephanie.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Spencer, what do you why do you think they're buying this?
CSS-Tricks, which by the way is CSS-Tricks. First of all, Chris started that when I started in WordPress, and it was foundational for me, along with like Justin Tadlock and PHP and stuff. It's foundational for me to understand CSS. Like I learned a ton from Chris, and I like.
Can you understand CSS? It's always been a kind of funny
CSS
thing.
is probably my strongest language. PHP and HTML, CSS, those I can do in my sleep, which is weird to say. But here's the thing, that if you go to SimilarWeb and check it out, they're showing them 6.2 million visitors a month. And this, the global page rank and stuff is random, but like it's very high. I mean, it's at like 14,000 globally, right? And so what I see happening is that the future for DigitalOcean is they have access to this huge audience and traffic. And they're giving Chris a way to, guarantee his financial future, but continue to make content. And they essentially get his traffic so they can do cross-marketing things. For example, one of the things that I do regularly and have some interest in this field is all these demos, right? And I'm a freelancer or I'm doing for a client, being able to launch a demo with certain products and to have the education wrapped around it. There's tons of ways you could spin somebody interested in the content of CSS-Tricks into a hosting client or into a related client. I mean, they're that close that you could do it. So that's where I see it. I see it as a traffic play. It's good publicity, and they're also acquiring a reputation. And they've got the money. You got to remember, these are companies that see hosting as a commodity going to zero. It's what you wrap around the hosting as a commodity. So plugins, services, content publishing, those are all revenue generators.
Andrew, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, I quite like companies being bought and sold. It gives us something to talk about, doesn't it? And CSS-Tricks, like I had a look at SimilarWeb. We kind of all use SimilarWeb to see, I wonder how much traffic they've got, and how much they got sold for. Because it's quite interesting to know this, and it does. I think it bodes well, really. You can go out there and you can build anything. You've built, how long has CSS-Tricks been going? Donkey's years, isn't it? So he's worked hard. It's the typical founder. I'm a bit knackered. I'm not making enough money out of this. How can I monetize this? How can I buy my retirement home or contribute to it, or my Porsche, or whatever I want to buy? Oh, hello, somebody's gonna buy my company, and I'll still have a job, and I'll still do what I'm really interested in. I think it's a sensible decision both for the vendor, the seller, and the buyer. Everybody wants traffic, and if you've got a traffic site that's generating 6 million page views a month, that's as many as Divi, by the way. They get 5 million page views a month, so they've proven that they can monetize their own blog. So yeah, I think it's a great idea for all concerned. I'm a business builder and seller, so I'm always going to say, yeah, sell your business. Why not?
Yep. You guys, we've got a fascinating article for our third story here. Tim Ferriss and Matt Mullenweg. Have you guys ever gone to a wedding or a funeral, some event where like friends of yours from different stages in your life came together and they didn't know each other before, but that's how I felt listening to this. Cause I love Matt Mullenweg. I'm a lover of people. You guys all love to complain about everybody, but I love Matt Mullenweg and I love Tim Ferriss. And so they come on in this podcast and they're talking. And I just thought like, this makes complete sense. Like, I love that these guys are friends because they both are like so philosophical and deep and they use big words and they're all like whatever. So for me, this was just plain fun to listen to. And it's super long. I haven't even actually finished the whole thing yet. Yeah, I haven't finished it all yet, but the first, I'm about halfway through or a little bit more, but even on 1.5 speed. But John, I know you have some feelings. You've got some feelings about this.
Well, I listened to this. What can you say about it? And I have such mixed feelings about Matt. When it comes to Tim Ferriss, there's Tim the human being, and listening to their conversation, the things, but there's Tim the personality, and I've got to make it clear, which I did make to you, Stephanie, before we went live, that
No, he was starting. He was ramping up, and I said,
I'm off to do. I'm off. I just have a problem with how Tim became a public figure, and he's, the original book, The 4 Hour Week. What a ridiculous bankrupt What absolute!
I totally subscribe.
What absolute bloody nonsense! What absolute bloody nonsense! And he has to take the responsibility for pushing this nonsense, and how he built up a business and made a fortune out of this nonsense is unbelievable. But it is what it is. When it came to the interview, talk about two snowflakes.
It's in Antarctica, so I get your pun.
Yeah,
talk about privilege, and we're in the Antarctic. Talking about deep intellectual things. I'll give me a break, will you? God, it just oozed of self-privilege, naval. You name the cliche, they covered it. And it was
Andrew, let him.
It was 2 hours of practical of intellectual dribble, basically.
Well, you got to remember
it really was.
With them.
And to say it was naval watching at Supremo would be a slight understatement, Stephanie. They're my fault, Stephanie.
I think we got it.
Yeah.
Don't hold back.
So you were into it then, in other words.
I was, in a way. It was it was another Matt train wreck. It was another wonder to nowhere in his mind. That
Andrew is dying to chime in. Andrew, what do you think? Look at him. He's like, he's crying. He's so.
Oh, I'm crying. Jonathan. It's just I can't see where that green-eyed monster is, but it's somewhere. It's somewhere in the background.
I just tell it as it is.
These people, they haven't earned their living. They're earning their living off the back of other people, and they're fooling people into thinking that they're genii, and all that kind of stuff. But do you know what? It's just you're jealous. Get off that.
No, not at all. I'm not jealous at all. Absolutely not. I'm puzzled why people fall for this nonsense.
Tribe, what do you think? Do you think he's jealous or not?
I think he's jealous.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, what did you think of did you listen to it? It was long. I think you said you did, right?
I fell asleep. I fell asleep. I had enough.
That's what I'm using. It's putting me. I'm using it as a aid to put me asleep watching those two naval.
I thought they were. I just thought this is just so boring. God, I can't. I mean, people must think about this when I speak or when I'm doing anything speak. They must think, "Oh God, go away! It's so boring." And it's horrible to think that. But it's almost.
No, it's not.
It's almost. It's almost narcissistic of them to put out this blog post, and I'm not jealous. I love what these guys do. They've made some money out of people. That's great, and they've done it the right way. That's even better. But it was really self-absorbed and self-indulgent. So it was almost like, let's record our dinner table conversation, but let's.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
I'm speaking. So let's do it in Antarctica. Let's do it in Antarctica and be really cool. So it was a bit, and I'm a special guest. I've jumped in. So it was a bit narcissistic and self-indulgent, and I didn't hear all of it because I fell asleep after about half an hour. That's my view.
Well, I have to jump
in. Oh, Sharon, please. Yeah.
Sharon's go.
Well, I'm going to jump in because I'm going to be a little bit more positive because I love Tim Ferriss. I still own his first book, and I lived on 4 hours. I lived on the 4 hour.
together. It's all coming together.
Jonathan, be nice.
Jonathan, I lived on the 4-hour work week because I did that. Spencer will tell you, I did this to start my own business. I followed Tim's 4-hour work week, and I did my full-time job in 4 hours, and as well going to the office every day and learning how to build my own business. So Tim Ferriss has always been a fan, or I am a fan of Tim Ferriss. And how can I disregard a fellow Texan, as in Matt? So, they did go up there. Okay, so maybe it's a bit narcissistic that they went up there to look at penguins, and Tim learned some penguin calls. But you also have to remember they had a bottle of scotch on the table between the two of them. So no wonder the interview went for 2 hours. So they might have gone off topic, but I did get one thing out of it, which kind of struck with me, is that both of them are off of the internet. They don't have great internet connections there, so that's kind of a big pill to take when you travel. And Spencer knows I'm a huge underwater explorer, so I do travel quite a bit, and it is a huge pill to take when you're off the internet and not having to be connected to what we call the world these days. So it's possibly that they had to entertain themselves to fulfill their off the internet.
Hey, Stephanie, you know that scene in 1984, the torture scene, where they find something that you hate the most to torture you? Well, the scene where they find a rat. Well, my torture would be in the same room with these two geezers listening to their shit. I would rather have the rat. I would rather have the fucking rat than listen to these two.
Wow. I would love to be in the room with these two guys. I think it would be awesome.
Me too. Yeah.
I think these guys, see, now where Jonathan gets jealous of them. Yeah, we said it. I get inspired by them because I'm like, these are just two nerdy guys that really they have to, I mean, they are so over the top. Like at one point they're talking about their stoicism apps on their phone that reminds them that they're gonna die. Like all this stuff. Like it's
stoicism.
It's bonkers, but like they do their thing and they've made something out of that. Like I'm a nerd. I love talking about deep philosophical things and nerdy things. I'm not super into like counting the days till I die, but and they make corny jokes along the way. Like when Matt Mullenweg said, "You can't spell Tim without TMI." Like I'm just like, that was it. Like that's just forever. Like it's like a corny joke and some deep philosophy. Plus they went to see a solar eclipse. Did you guys see the solar eclipse that happened like 5 years back in the US?
You just love it. Let's get Spencer.
No, because I was in the UK.
Let's get Spencer's view on this.
So
ahead,
not particular to Tim Ferriss or Matt Mullenweg, although I do listen to Tim Ferriss. Secret tip when you listen to Tim Ferriss is just fast forward every podcast 5 minutes because he has 5 minutes of ads at the front of it.
Oh my God.
Brutal.
That's the one thing I did not like. Yeah.
But he makes I think he charges $110,000 a spot or something like, or $54,000 a spot. So $250,000
money. Everybody knows he's going to listen.
Here's the thing that I spin off on this is that everybody on the planet has their own destiny, and some people don't want to have children, and some people don't want to be married, and some people, that's all good. We all have our own thing. But I could say that across the board, when I meet, because I have kids 11 to 21, and I had kids when I was older and stuff. When I see people, for example, dads who have kids, especially those who are in their 30s, I have a certain combination of altruism and schadenfreude, where watching them struggle with their first kid because they have to makes me so happy. But at the same time, it gives me great pleasure to help them because I can tell them, I've seen your future 20 years from now. And there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen, good, bad, and otherwise. And the point I'm saying is like, I am the genie that pops out of the bottle to tell you what you could do about this if you want to listen. When I hear those two, with a combined wealth of like nearly maybe $1 billion between them complain about their depression and their stoicism and their whatever, I want to reach out and shake both of them and say, hey, Tim, for fuck's sake, you're 44. Knock out a couple kids already. Hey, Matt, you're 38. Knock out a couple kids already. You know why? Because as soon as you spend any amount of effort on another human being that you created, even if you're not married, you will not have time to whine and complain about like my thoughts in my head, which is depression and other things Tim has been very frank about he struggles with. But like the best help for that is to get out of it. So I'm not saying do as I say, but I am saying I couldn't stop thinking.
I got a cure for you, Tim, for your depression.
I'm just saying I
give all your money. Give all your money to charity, Tim.
Well, whatever.
And then your day will be filled with the struggle of trying to make it existence, Tim.
It could have been helping homeless people.
That's my fucking suggestion for you, Tim.
Then
instead of going to Antarctica, yeah, he could do better with his money.
The point is that yes, it was entertainment and they weren't doing anything harmful, but like listening to two single guys, especially one in his mid-40s, who's not shared his knowledge, wealth, or otherwise with another human being yet, it seems like the obvious answer is instead of making podcasts talking about your struggles with all this stuff, go help somebody and then tell us how you feel, because it's a pretty well-known cure for that. That's all I was
So
thinking.
Spencer, you're saying I should stop taking my antidepressant and just get done. Is that your...
I'm saying if you had a podcast, Stephanie, and you were worth $400 million, that I would give you the same advice. I'd say spend some of that time and money on going and creating some charitable thing or thing that turns you on to help other people. And yeah, see how that works versus talking about it on a podcast. That's what I would say. I'm not saying it's a cure, but I'm saying that is for many people who struggle with those kinds of issues, a way to get relief or otherwise do good with it. But the thing is, it's just the talking about it part. Like, I like his podcast when he has guests. He had Arnold Schwarzenegger on earlier. I mean, that's fascinating. But when two guys that are single and rich in their 30s and 40s talk about this stuff, it's just kind of, come on.
I don't think I'm going to just do a caveat, and I don't think you're being quite sympathetic on people that suffer from depression, because it's an illness, and we've got to be.
I'm not talking about depression. I'm talking about having a podcast.
There is no real cure. You can have a whatever it is. You can have a moment and say, yeah, okay, I'll give away £1 million, or I'll change some guy's child's nappy for him to make him feel happier, and that'll make me feel happier. But depression doesn't actually work like that, Spence.
I'm not bringing depression into this as an illness. I'm bringing it into the fact that neither one of these guys are talking on this podcast about their depression. They're talking about their meandering, oh, woe is me this and oh, woe is me that. That's not depression. That's just two guys that have too much time and too much money on their hands. And if they spent it on something more meaningful, whatever.
Well, Matt Spencer on an RV that he can.
So obvious, Spencer. They need to play golf. If they played golf, Spencer, they would have.
This is an illness of rich people. This is an illness of rich people everywhere, self-made or otherwise. The people. There's a term called rich and aimless. Okay, it's called hedonic adaptation. Regardless of your mental state, if you have money and time and you're smart, your brain is constantly seeking something to keep it entertained with, typically bothersome things like, what's my new problem of the day? And so I'm saying it's not a matter of them being unique. Every human being has this. Freelancers have this. Sharon, when she kept referring to when I first met her, she was working it out, like working her job. And we talked all that. I'm like, do your side hustle, do this, do that. All the stuff he talks about is valid. I'm saying he's 44. And he keeps he's got some girlfriend that is allegedly on the hook now for years. Just marry her, have a baby already, and
right.
He
does refer to his girlfriend.
Then you can write another book, like the commenter said, like the 4-hour parenting book or something. But just
if you can do parenting in 4 hours, then I'll sign up. But no, I don't.
I don't feel like I do think Jonathan's jealous, but I don't think I'm speaking as a term of jealousy. I'm speaking in terms of.
Don't think I'm jealous.
I'm speaking in terms of each of us has a journey. Some of us go this and that and the other. It doesn't matter. The point is, when you make it a public conversation, you should be open to the suggestion that, hey, maybe the solution is right in front of me.
But don't you find the timing of publishing this when you got people in the Ukraine really struggling and really.
I think they recorded.
And these two snowflakes in the freaking Antarctica looking at their navel, where you got real passionate people fighting for their freedom.
I don't
and
think
you got to
they have
listen.
anything
You
to
got
do
to
with
listen to these two dribble on about their freaking problems.
Well,
get
actually, you
over
don't
it.
have
That's
to.
what I say. Get over it.
You don't have to listen to it. That's the key. You have.
I don't think this was created at the time they knew about what was happening.
There's a
in
thing
Ukraine.
called free will. You know, you can choose to press it. But moving on, I think you're at halfway stage, aren't you?
Listen,
Look at who's trying to take the reins all of a sudden. The guy shows up late.
He's not a control freak at his core, is he?
Listen, we take the break when I say we take the break.
Good
And I'm
job,
not
I
ready
like it.
yet.
Hit me with it, baby.
you go, girl.
Because I have some more things to say about this. And that is, it's a shame that there is a war going on and everybody is affected by it. But I kind of disagree with you, John. Like, we can't just only talk about the war. Like, we could say the same thing about us today. Like, who gives a crap that Chris Collier's business got bought?
Yeah, but we're not.
Because there's a war going on. Why are we talking about that? That's not important. It isn't in the grand scheme
We're
of the
not
war.
going on a Johnny to the Antarctic now, have we?
Who cares? They went before the war. There's no way this. I mean, that wasn't
not in
reported
March.
live.
This trip was well before that, of course.
Yeah. So I disagree with you on that, Jonathan, and all of you guys. I think for me, my perspective is I love a peek behind the curtain, and I love to see people who are successful that show their vulnerabilities, their fears, and their struggles, because that gives me a little bit of inspiration to say, hey, I struggle with depression too, or hey, I might think that I can't do this. And then I say, like, wait a minute, this guy is actually suffering from crippling depression that he thinks he will never get over, and he's worth that much money, and this many people look at, it. So there's two ways of looking at that. You can say, like, oh, quit your yapping and crying about your problems, or you can say, look what he's done, and he's willing to show his vulnerability. In a Kardashian world, I find that very refreshing to see that, like, they're showing their vulnerabilities and stuff. So now we're going to take a break because I said so. All right, everybody, welcome back. Quick reminder, don't forget to go sign up for the weekly WP-Tonic newsletter, where you can hear Jonathan just rant almost endlessly about all the things that he's jealous about. Go to wp-tonic.com/newsletter. So, on to our next. Oh man, that was a big one.
That was a big
It
one.
didn't even talk about anything actually about WordPress or tech, but it was still a big one. That got everybody going. Okay, next article
Look,
is
Stephanie, we're into entertainment, Stephanie. This is the
Is that what we're
purpose of
into?
this.
All right.
We're entertainment.
But there's a war going on, Jonathan. Why should we
Yeah.
entertain?
Right, there you go.
Accessily.com has an article
It's
on
Access Alley.
Accessily.
By the way, this should be part of what we talk about, because I've spoken to Nathalie about this directly.
Yeah.
And I
You
gotta
need
say,
to, because you're the main one that spread the bloody rumor.
her and her husband are amazing people. They're parents, and they're wonderful entrepreneurs. But I could write a book about all the things they've decided to do that I disagree with, and that it constantly
like
show their head,
Accessily?
including it's Access Ally.
Access
Ally.
Alley.
And everybody doesn't know how to say it.
I
It's
don't
Access
know.
Ally, Access Ally.
I want to point it out. I want to point out to you,
Ally.
Spencer. I got a few email from her after your Allah getting me in the SHIT again, Spencer, which you do regularly.
What's that?
I like that he spells SHIT, but just has already said the F word like 5 times.
Yes,
Yeah.
True.
You don't know, by the way, you don't know. I want to discuss publicly my struggle with not swearing on this show. My personal struggle after 676 episodes of this show is, why am I still swearing? Because I know I should stop, but something about this show keeps making me swear.
Denwood. Just makes you swear. Look at me, I've gone red. It's just in
10
You have
years
gone
or
red.
whatever, 12 years, however long this show's been going on, and I vowed to not swear every show for
And you do.
600 times, and here I am swearing at Natalie. No, I love Natalie, but
I would
this-
never
this-
swear that
this
She's
story
one of
brings
the-
out some of the whole.
Before
issue.
you go into the story, though, can we just talk for a second more about this name? It's Accessally, is how it's
Access
spelled. And
Alley.
they're,
Access
I
Alley.
I know, but that's not what it
It's
looks
not
like.
Access Alley. It's Access Ally.
But that's,
Assets.
it's just bad. But also, is their logo an upside down ice cream cone?
Or it could be,
That's what it
or,
looks like.
you know what? It could be.
She's
it could
coming
be-
on the show next week. You better be nice too.
Good. Like, let's get this all worked out now so that we can understand it and I can pronounce everything correctly.
It could be Assess Sally.
It's got to be
I've-
Access Alley. You're right.
Oh, it
looks like
is.
Access
It could be
Alley.
Assess Sally. Access Sally. Or
Access Sally.
Or like whenever you watch those old Saturday Night Lives and they do the
The news.
the Jeopardy, where they've got the guy who was playing the character of Sean
Yes,
Connery,
yes.
and he'll always take the name and he'll say
Swords.
dog.
Swords for 5,000. That's S words.
But the ice cream cone, the rest. Listen, they built a tremendous little thing for themselves, a framework inside of a plugin. But this is
Yeah,
just
catch everybody up on what this actually is, Spencer.
so essentially they came up with a really clever idea during the time when you couldn't do this otherwise, to build a membership site in a plugin where you could connect it to your favorite CRM, which very specifically at the time was Infusionsoft. And I think they connect to other ones now. But they, in my opinion, I'm not shy about this, they broke every cardinal sin, or made every cardinal sin of doing this. They made it that essentially you had to use their product at the expense of anything else because of the way it worked and the way it connected and the way it boxed things in and changed the post types. But what they did in their favor was they built a really, really strong community. And I can say this without misogyny. It was mostly oriented towards professional, successful women, I would say, the majority of their audience. And in doing so, they've got a lot of loyalty and a lot of customers.
You didn't quite, when you were discussing it with me, you didn't quite put it that diplomatic.
Well,
I think
said
you
it
called it the sisterhood, didn't you?
Well, what I said,
Right.
hold on.
No, he
don't-
specified he was going to say it this time without misogyny.
Don't out me on anything because I say this publicly. What she did that I don't agree with was if you are driving on the highway, you have to drive the same direction as the other cars. You can't build a car that is designed to drive into the oncoming traffic. Furthermore, the naming stuff, again, they've succeeded despite it, but nobody ever says it the same way. And then this domain stuff is sort of an outshoot of that, which is they have a very close community. There's other similar ones, like there's the membership guys, Callie Willows and Mike, have built that inside their own group. They have a little, like it's called Memberoni or something. A lot of people use it, but it's at the expense of everything in the real world. There is a possibility to do that, but when you do that in the world of WordPress, you're essentially kind of like some themes that I love, like Oxygen, thumbing your nose at people and saying, I don't care what everyone else is doing. We're going to do it this way. And so this isn't the point of the article. She's right what she wrote, but we actually had to let her know. We're like, hey, Natalie, you're selling the whole business for $50 or whatever it was. And then
Yeah,
Andrew
it
and I
was
were
just
talking
when you
about-
brought that up during the podcast, it was the most bizarre. I had no idea what the hell you
Well, it
were
was like
talking
50
about.
grand, I think they wanted, but I think it was just a scam or something.
It
I don't
was.
know, whatever. But also, it bodes well, or bodes badly, or bodes well and badly for Flip WP, because that says that they're and I know the guys that are running that, and I'm a member of Flip WP because I have a little look at it occasionally. But it shows that their due diligence wasn't done.
It's one way. I could put it much more directly than that, Andrew. That's very
Yeah,
diplomatic.
but no, I mean, don't forget this is a business podcast as well, and I'm trying to be very, very business-like,
Very diplomatic.
very professional. But we all make mistakes. Christ,
Very,
you know,
very
if I-
English.
Yeah. But anyway,
You're mixing your podcast. That was yesterday's podcast. That's bloody entertainment, Andrew. Right.
Does any-
The truth is, it's not really Access Ally's fault that somebody
No.
scammed. I agree. It's more on Flippa WP.
Well,
fault.
she's such a lovely. She's coming on the show in April, Tribe, and I do admire her enormously. I've got the greatest respect for her. But she must just got fed up with these Flipper people. What a shower! What an absolute shower!
Well, they were trying to make a point in the post was that, beware of scams when you're trying to purchase a flipping domain. So that's basically
there's not much one can do
If you
about
try
it.
to purchase a flipping domain,
flipping domain.
make sure you sell it.
Andrew, what's the name
Sorry,
of the
it's not
WP
Flip
Flip
WP?
site?
It was Flipper, wasn't it? So I don't
No,
know.
it wasn't
those
Flippa. I
guys.
think it was Flip WP, wasn't it?
It was Flip
Flipper.
WP. Yeah, I know that. We all know those guys who started Flip
Was it
WP.
Flip WP the domain? Oh yeah, Flip WP. And that's Alex Denning, who is somebody well respected for his expertise in other areas. So
We know him.
I
We know
think
him. Yeah. He's a good
Yeah,
guy.
but she had to
it was a
keep.
failure of their-
She had to keep bloody, and it's only because somebody in her tribe, as you say, in her sisterhood, knew them, that she could get some bloody sense out of them. She must have just wanted to. She's so calm and collective. I wish I was.
Don't we all, though?
Yeah, I know you do, Andrew.
Feelings
You've always got a good word to say about me, haven't you, Andrew? But she must have been
the thing that's admirable is I like to be a contrarian, as you might agree. And so
No.
what I like about Nathalie is she is super polite, a parent, a very good open-minded person. She doesn't pretend that what she's doing is something other than what she's doing. So you can have an honest discussion with that person and say, like, here, these things you're doing, I think are crazy. And she says, well, you may think I'm crazy, but I'm doing them with purpose.
Yeah.
So I respect her on that level, because there are people who pretend that they're doing something by claiming it's the only way or the right way or the way it was handed down from above. But she doesn't do that. She has come out and admitted she did things a certain way because she had a vision. The thing that essentially I disagree with is, if you're going to make a plugin, don't make it a framework. But what do I know?
As a business person, I've got I totally think she's fabulous. But as the product, that's the whole. She is a competitor to WP-Tonic to some extent. But my philosophy about what WP-Tonic offers is the total opposite of what she's offering. But I'm cool with it. Everybody's got choices, haven't they? Good luck to them. That's what I say.
There's plenty of room for everyone.
Yeah, that's fine. But I just she's so calm, because I would have wanted to kill these buggers. Keep having to. I would have just wanted to find where they are, and not just the scam artists. There's all the world's filled with scam artists. It's Flipper. She had to keep contacting them. Why can't they just?
Was it Flipper or WP Flip?
Flip? Was it Flip?
Flip WP.
All right, listen. The article says Flippa.
Flipper.
Yeah.
It says Flipper.
I don't know. It does not say WP Flip anywhere, so I don't know if that's coming from something
Flipper.
else.
She
But listen, guys,
she had to keep
we gotta move on.
contacting these people. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? It's just bloody ridiculous.
Jonathan, have a
right.
sip of water, man. You're getting worked up again. Let's move on.
Yeah,
We're running out of time. We gotta hit. Let's go. We're going to talk about the Master WP article. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Probably not. I don't know. WordPress security getting better or worse? Sharon, do you have any thoughts on this article?
Thoughts. Well, I would say that if to answer the question, I would say it's getting better, but it's all dependent on statistics. Regardless of how many people are using specific plugins, how WooCommerce is obviously a huge platform and tons of plugins. It was one of the things I had a conversation when I was on Do the Woo with Bob was that I wish that WooCommerce would have developed a plugin that you could just start right out of the gate without having to install all these separate plugins just to make it work. So that's kind of my huge issue with, I guess, the WordPress environment and WooCommerce is the amount of plugins that we have to put in to get certain things that our clients want. So that's just my point of view. I'm used
And to keep it secure.
Yeah.
In the context
Yeah.
of this particular article.
Right, exactly. So I don't know, are they less or more? They say the core is more secure than it was, but who can really verify that? Who actually verifies that everything that we're running in open source is secure? So
Spence, what do you think?
I mean, the point that, first of all, Rob's writing some good articles here, but the thing that he concludes with is that essentially he thinks that the security issue should be handled from above and not from third-party security publishers or agencies. And I think there's a truth to that, but that gets back to our ever repetitive conversation about like governance and who's really running the show up top. And since WordPress is still a compilation of many different companies interacting, I actually do feel appreciative of the fact that because there's such a large open source community, that when things go sideways with security, about it really fast.
Yes.
I mean, and they're especially Sucuri or WordFence.
Okay.
Like, I know about what's going down really fast.
Security.
Sucuri.
Security?
He lives in Chicago.
S-U-C-U-R-I. Sucuri.
Sucuri.
Same-
I think
By
it's
the way-
Sucuri.
By the way, one WD-TV circa 2007. Domain name, easy to say, easy to spell, easy to remember.
Sure.
But two companies with weird ass names that, like, I don't know, Sucuri sounds like a cough drop, but it worked. Anyway, WordFence, can't go wrong with that.
WordFence.
My throat hurts. I need a Sucuri.
That sounds.
Anyway, but that is the point. I think it's nice to think about, but it's unrealistic to believe that WordPress automatic is going to take charge of top-down governance, because we're fresh on.
Well, it's not that surprising. The guy that runs it's talking to penguins.
Well, we're
John.
We're fresh on the cusp of this conversation of last week of the WordPress/WooCommerce store. Now, I put up my own red flags for future reference that good luck with that when you start making choices about which products get sold in the WooCommerce or the WordPress store, and the security issues and who gets a cut of the money and who takes the money and who keeps the emails and all those things that normal companies work out amongst themselves. When the kingdom decides that, and then there's a bunch of people who are minions in between. We already know how that works out, because that's this conversation, isn't it? There's 256,000 random plugins that allegedly were vetted, but because the people were hobnailed or hobbled from making any money there, they're like, F it.
They're not updating them.
F it, I'm not going to support this anymore. And then it lingers until some wise guy or girl figures out, oh, there's a security patch I can get through, and it has 500,000 people using it.
It does have a serious element to this, because there is still a lot of propaganda, and some of it is based on truth. Most companies that have IT departments, the people inside it, if you mention WordPress to them, they just go in a cold sweat. They just literally have a cold sweat, and it's really holding back. And it's really holding back WordPress to some extent, and it's cliche to some extent. But there's also some element of truth, and this is what this article is about. And it, like what Spencer's, it should be sorted out, and it needs to be
financially motivated. Can we just be honest? The world as we live in, by the way, talking about what's happening in Eastern Europe, capitalism is the thing that makes people act both selfishly and altruistically and can be kept in balance. Okay. Capitalism gives people with nothing a belief and an incentive they will have something, and it makes people with something believe they've got to, at least under certain circumstances, help those other people. The other forms of political governance obviously lead to weird results. So here in WordPress, we can use that as a metaphor and say, you cannot say that you can have a store or a repository of free stuff while you're telling those authors, no, you can't make money. No, you can't talk about your plugins. No, you can't upsell. No, you can't put things in, because they're two different political philosophies. And we see how that doesn't work out well.
No, but you can, because one is WordPress.com and one is WordPress.org. So
yeah, but the .org is where the real innovation happens. And then
no, I'm joking. But I'd like to be held back to the tune of 255,000 installs a day. I don't think security is holding back WordPress. WordPress is installed 255,000 times a day. If I was a novice user and I read an article like this, or I was thinking, well, am I going to go to Wix, whatever the other ones are, Shopify, the other S, because it's an encapsulated system. Squarespace, that's the one. I always forget that. It's just a rubbish name for a WordPress system. But anyway, I wouldn't go to WordPress. I really wouldn't. I would read this and go, oh, that's insecure. And there's too many plugins, and there's too many components, and there's too many people involved. And
but you say that is the differentiator, though, Andrew, isn't it? I mean, I don't disagree with your point, but like when you look at the actual difference between the other platforms and this, they are all closed platforms except for WordPress. And so that is the price to pay. And that's where I'm suggesting, having built my original expertise in these spaces on closed platforms with the REST API.
I do understand what Andrew is saying, and also understand what you're saying. But I do feel that there would be, if we had a slightly more coherent upper management structure or some structure, that surely there would be some way where a plugin could get a blue tick or some sign it's gone through some checking process, which the plugin people would have to pay for. Surely you could construct something.
You could just bifurcate the existing thing into, these are plugins that have a paid version, paid services, paid upsell, and here are the ones that don't. And it's just that simple. Like literally today with the repository, whether it's a checkbox or it's a category or filter, the point is that here's all the random scripts written by your neighbor, and here's all the real businesses that wrote actual monetized stuff. And for those companies, they're given a framework that is the same for everyone, how to offer their product, how they can upsell, how the money can be collected. Not this bullshit, sorry, I swore again, of like a store, but rather just the repository itself providing a mechanism for people
who are... How do WordPress.com get money out of that? They don't.
Well, they would run a they would run a certification.
You can't go through that process.
You would have to agree that your code's been coded at a certain standard, and then you would pay for them to do a quick check.
They do that now. Just to get a plugin in.
That's how you would do it, Andrew.
But then by them saying this is certified safe and bug-free and secure, WordPress.com, they are accepting responsibility.
I'm not saying they should certify it. I'm saying they can have a kill switch. So for example, when I submitted a plugin to the repository as a goof, the Gutenberg one, right? I had to get it approved, but I realized their resources are limited. Now, let's say somebody who uses it pushes the button that says, uh-oh, this is a possible problem. They go into standby mode until something happens, and it could be on the cost of the plugin owner to demonstrate that it's fixed or it's not, so that it doesn't become a liability.
They do that. They do that now.
No, they don't, because the problem
is
they don't do the part about allowing a monetization.
Oh, no, they don't allow the monetization.
If they made the repository a framework where people would be incentivized, because I can use it as a sales channel.
But then once again, I repeat, how do WordPress.com make money out of it? That's all this marketplace is. Don't worry. Listen, I'm a former marketplace owner.
I'm talking about .org.
Yeah, but WordPress.com want to make money out of a marketplace. They've seen the success of a theme. Divi theme marketplace is massive, right? There's a load of people making a load of cash, and Nick and his cohorts and his friends and whoever
why isn't it different?
He's making a fortune. Well, Divi, because they're not different. There's free plugins for Divi. Hang on, Spence, let me finish. There's free plugins for Divi. There are free plugins.
We got to wrap
for Divi.
soon, you guys.
I know, but there are free plugins for Divi, and there are Divi marketplaces. Elegant Themes has their own marketplace. Go on there yourself. See what plugins are selling. There are people making 30 grand a month from selling a layout or a plugin. That is what WordPress.com wants from their own marketplace. They don't care necessarily about the free one. They want to make their 30%.
Well, I think you're totally right there, Andrew, but that is the contradiction. And
well, it's not a contradiction.
You've just so in your
completely separate. They're separate.
But we're talking at cross purposes because a store run by Automatic is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in .com presently. There's a security issue and another issue because of publicity or politics, where companies who obviously have an upsell to a premium plugin can't say or do anything about it. That is not a store. That is the repository. And to your point, I am not talking about whether Automatic makes a store for WooCommerce or WordPress.com. I'm saying if the people who make money from their plugins could be given a filter framework, whatever, that allows a protected way to upsell and be fair, that would be equally applicable to WordPress.com as well. And WordPress could take a piece of that action. Maybe they take 5% of the gross or something. And in return for which people can stop pretending, and that's my whole point, that somehow we can't sell or talk about sell products because that's what's led us to the security issue. People
you're missing the point. You're missing the whole point is that they don't want to do that.
We need to, I'm going to step in. Stephanie, you need to control these people, Stephanie.
I'm trying. You guys, listen, you can at each other later, okay? And fight about it.
Where do we have to go? Do we run out of tape or something? Does the film run out of the camera? Like if the show is 5 minutes short, what happens?
I'm going to turn into a pumpkin.
Like we're actually having a conversation about something relevant to WordPress, and now we got to cut it off. Like, what happens? It's the digital era.
We're just trying to cut you off. That's what we're trying to do.
I'm just doing as I'm told by Mr. Denwood, the big boss around here. Guys, let's just quickly go through and do some recommendations for the week, which will of course show up in your newsletter and on the recommendations page on the WP-Tonic website. So, who has recommendations? Shall we just go into a circle? Jonathan Denwood, kick it off.
Yeah, I've got a book that has consistently influenced my outlook to the world, and it's from George Orwell. It's Homage to Catalonia. My grandfather fought with George, and George was a personal friend of my grandfather. And George was a brave man. My father helped him get out of Spain where he got shot in the throat. And we have some letters that my father sent to George. And this book, if you really want to understand what happened in Spain and how the world really runs, you really need to read this book. Like I say, it's Homage to Catalonia.
Wow, I did not see that coming, but that sounds cool. Sharon, you have a recommendation this week?
Yes, and I actually was recommending it way before I even read the article of the sale. So mine is for the YITH, the YITH plugins for WooCommerce. You can get items like the WooCommerce wish list, gift cards, product filter, and also customization for your account page. And just go to YITH. It's actually YIThemes.com.
Spencer.
They're great plugins. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a problem come up this week that was a long-term client had some video that was embedded.
Oh, yeah, we know about that.
And it turns out, right? And it turns out that YouTube is constantly changing its algorithm to keep up with those. Google don't play, music or sound when a video launches. So they had discovered that iPhones after iOS 15, which is like the newer phones, stopped playing the videos entirely. So this guy, this YouTube link, had a way around that new limitation. It's how to do a little snippet that auto embeds YouTube to play. It was like a really weird thing, but I bet you for a lot of people who do freelance work, they'll find that if they go to an embedded YouTube video, even if they put the mute on and the auto display thing set as proper, it doesn't work now on newer phones. And this is a way around it.
Cool.
That's
Kind
a
of
very
nuanced.
niche, but very useful.
Well, because a lot of people have YouTube videos and then they just look it on the
Put
website.
please put all your recommendations into Slack, please.
I put it in there. Right?
We sure will. Andrew, what do you got for the people?
Oh, well, as I was late, I haven't really thought, but it's going to be self-promotion. But it's a community project, so it's not really self-promotion. But it's agencyradio.online. I just launched a radio station online, so that's one of my things that I'm doing. It's a hobby project, and it will kind of be a mix of music and chat and interviews and stuff when I get my act together. But at the moment, it's live. There's over 8,000 songs in the queue, and there's a couple of adverts on there from friends and sponsors. And I'm loving it. People are loving it as well. So it's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. My recommendation is more of a dedication to Jonathan this week. This is a little something special for you. I have been watching The Dropout on Hulu. Do you know this show, John?
No, I don't know. I have no idea what you're
It's
talking
about our friend Elizabeth Holmes.
Oh, right.
It's a dramatic miniseries.
Who
This
plays
is for
her in
you.
it?
I'm just Amanda. See, I don't know how to say her name either. Seyfried, Seyfried, Seyfri.
Separate.
Oh, Seafried.
Secret.
Since I've been involved in podcasting on this show, on Divi Chat, and I do some stuff in my Facebook group too, I have realized that I say things in my head so easily, and when they come out, it's just wrecked.
I don't have that problem. It just comes out of my mouth, Stephanie.
Is that because you live in the southern states of America? Kind of forgetting how to pronounce words?
Nope. I don't know how to say that last name, but that's who plays her. And she's got the big eyes, and she's got the little underbite thing that she's doing. And it's, John, you're gonna just like, there goes your weekend, buddy. That's what you're gonna do.
She was great in Mean Girls, by the way. I loved her in that.
Yeah. This it's pretty fun to watch.
I've got actual insight for you, Stephanie. When you're running two companies, plus you're trying to organise a virtual summit where you've taken over 15,000 of other people's money, your days are pretty filled, Stephanie. Actually,
Listen, that doesn't sound like a founder to me. There's always time
to
look to your heroes. Like
24 hours in a day, Jonathan. 24 hours in a day.
Yeah, you can do all like Tim says, you can do all this in 4 hours.
That's true. I don't know what you're complaining about.
Yeah, exactly.
Guys, we have gone 2 minutes over, but I feel like that is a victory because this was a job. It's only noon here, and I'm ready for a drink after wrangling these cats for an hour. I hope
the Beatles became famous. They were at the Abbey Road Studios, and there's a funny story about how they used to tell them exactly how much in pounds it cost them for every minute of tape. And after they were famous, like in the 1968 era, they used to just go fuck off. Don't tell me we're the Beatles by now. Well, I think we've earned the right to go 2 minutes over on this show.
Okay. For also, I feel terrible that we didn't mention this earlier because Daniel, also name very unpronounceable, Daniel Schutzsmith had an amazing comment earlier that he prefers the mentholyptus Security.
Right.
It really opens up the nasal passages, right, Daniel?
It's secure and refreshing.
Yes, exactly. So on that note,
that could be their
on that note, we are out of here. This chaos. I'm shutting it down, everybody. We will see you next week on the podcast. Have a great week.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye.